Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our channel, our Scientology stories, peeling the onion. Welcome, onion peelers. And I want to bring in my co-host here, Janice, Gillham, Grady. My name is Mark Fisher. How you doing, Janice? Aloha!
Aloha! I had to match you, Mark.
Yeah, I have about 35 to 40 Hawaiian shirts I've been collecting over the years. And so what I'm trying to do is to wear a different shirt in each video until I run out, and then I'll have to cycle them over. But if I do one a week, it should last almost a year.
Okay. Well, since you've been wearing Hawaiian, I thought I'd put on my one Hawaiian dress.
So we got people in here right now live. We want to welcome you all. Let's see. We've got about, well, so far we're just starting, 26 people in here. Goldie's in the house. We want to say hello to Goldie. Thank you so much, Goldie. And, you come on in, you guys. We want to thank everybody who subscribed to our channel. And also, if you have questions, ask the questions in the chat, okay? The other thing, too, is, look, we're not doing this for the money. We're doing this to help people. But it will help. If you want to help us and do any kind of donation, just do a super chat or a super sticker, and that's more than adequate. We're happy to get that. It helps support the channel. Janice and I just bought 2 new cameras. And so if you want to do that, do a super chat. Your question goes up at the top of the list, but we're going to answer all the questions. We're not going to ignore the ones who don't super chat. But we just wanted to point that out to everybody. Okay. All right. So I was going to show you something here, Janice.
Yep, those are my 2 dogs and the cat, all on the same couch together, sleeping peacefully.
Tell them the name of your cat.
My cat, well, I just call it Kitty Cat. Paul used to call him McLovin. From I don't remember what movie it was.
Oh, it's from gosh, and now I'm going to forget it again too. Anyway, whatever, I can't remember.
Anyway, Paul called him McLovin. I just call him Kitty Cat. And then the black dog is Rocky.
Super Bad. That's what the movie was. Super Bad.
Super Bad. Okay. And then the brown one is Moose.
Moose, right.
They're peacefully on the couch together, which is great.
And how old is McLovin? He's pretty old, isn't he?
McLovin's 15 years old now.
Wow.
Yeah, he's getting up there.
Yeah, and I've cat sat for you before when you've gone on trips. Before you had the dogs, but the cat took right to the dogs, right? How did that go when you introduced them?
No, the cat still hisses at the dogs and thinks he's the king of the house. And the dogs just, oh, okay. They're just more curious.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. The other thing we wanted to tell you about is that we are doing another series. We've got our series that we've been doing on the L. Ron Hubbard's messengers. And if you haven't watched those, you should. There's part 1, part 2, and part 3. And Janice goes over the history of the commoner's messengers with fabulous photographs, right? But we're also starting a series 2 on St. Hill, which is in East Grinstead, Sussex, England. And that was L. Ron Hubbard's manor house, where he did the briefing course, and people came in the 60s to listen to him lecture, right, Janice?
Yeah, and the clearing course was done there, and the solo auditing course. It was a booming place back in the 60s, and that's the manor house. But yeah, we'll do a whole series on that. And I'll start from, the beginning of it and go through. I got there in 1966, and we'll tell stories of, from my view as a kid being there, and the different people that I met that later joined the Sea Org, and I knew them till the end of their life, or even some are still alive.
And you actually grew up with some of Hubbard's children too, right?
Yes. Yeah. Diana, Quentin, Suzette, and Arthur.
That's right. Now, the other reason some of you may know, or who are ex-Scientologists or Sea Org members, know that St. Hill was the model organization. Like, David Miscavige has his ideal morgues, right? Which he calls his ideal organizations, right? But L. Ron Hubbard always considered St. Hill the ideal organization. And they used to play the birthday game every March 13th to see what orgs could get up to the size of old St. Hill. because St. Hill was booming back in the day. I'm going to show you a picture here. Janice, why don't you tell everybody what that is? You see L. Ron Hubbard there.
Yeah. L. Ron Hubbard's there. In 1962, my parents went to St. Hill to do the St. Hill Special Briefing course. And standing behind Ron on his left is my dad. He's got a jacket on that's open, kind of a gray jacket. And in the front there, that little boy is my 9-year-old brother pushing Suzette Hubbard, who was probably about 7 years old at the time.
With the bright red hair.
Yeah, the redhead. Yeah. And you know, what's funny about this picture, Mark, right in pretty much close to in the middle is Herbie Parkhouse.
Yeah.
And when the church released this picture, they had photoshopped Herbie out of it because he was an SP.
Right. He was former guardian's office, and he was declared a suppressive person. That's funny. And then also, Janice, you can see that people just walked right up to L. Ron Hubbard and what they called him Ron, right?
Yeah, they called him Ron. I don't know where this L. Ron thing came from that people say. His name was Ron, and that's what people called him, and that's what he asked to be called. And he just walked around St. Hill, and students would come up and chat with him, whoever wanted to. He was not out of sight, out of mind. And this here is the outside of the chapel. In the chapel, it was probably so packed you couldn't get in anymore.
Right.
So the people were piling up at the windows to listen to what he had to say.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have a whole series on that. We're gonna do an introduction on St. Hill in one video, and then we had the pleasure, Janice, of interviewing an old time Scientologist and former Sea Org member, right?
Yes, Ken Urquhart. I've known Ken since I was 12 years old on the ship, and worked with him closely. He was actually the boss of the messengers for a short period. But his office was right outside the Commodore's, and when he'd get mad, you'd see papers flying out his office. but Ken was a lot of fun, and we interviewed him, and he's telling some good stories from the days at St. Hill before he came to the ship. So he's talking about his days when he was the butler for Ron, right, and also his personal communicator at St. Hill.
That's right. And then also we're going to actually do several interviews with him because he was actually, as the former LRH personal communicator, he was basically, the right-hand man to Hubbard for quite so many years at St. Hill and also on this flagship Apollo and in Clearwater. And so he's got a lot of stories to tell. And he's now 85 years old. This picture here, he looks like 007 or David Jansen. It's 1973, right?
Yes, 1973.
Yeah. So anyway, so you can look forward to that. He doesn't do interviews very often, so we're really happy to be able to do an interview with him today, and there'll be more of that coming up. Okay. All right. We want to tell everybody, go ahead and get your questions in and your comments in the chat. And Janice, I think we've got some we can start with here.
Okay. First off, I want to give a shout out to a couple of people who had caught my eye as that they're here, and that is Bill Lazzaroni. I'm glad to see you're here, Bill. Welcome. And it actually, when I saw your name, it reminded me of a great story when we were on the RPF together, and you taught me how to make a bench. We were
read what he says in the comment.
Okay, where is it here?
It says, "Hello, Janice. You're looking great, and your laughing warms my heart. Say hello to Terry and to Stuart for me. Good luck to you and your sidekick."
Yeah, so the story is we were getting so many more people into the RPF, we were running out of seats. So Bill says he'll teach me how to build a bench. So, so I'm out there and he's teaching me how to build it, and I do a flat and I do the legs and I do supports coming down this way. And I'm very proud of having built this bench. And Bill helps me take it in and I put it down there. And all the RPFers come in for dinner. And Leroy. Leroy comes in. Leroy, I don't know, he's bigger than you, Mark. He was
Yeah,
huge.
I remember
Anyway,
Leroy.
he comes in and he sits on the bench, and I'm so proud of it. But he sat in the middle of the bench where there was no support, and the thing just went and just cracked right in half, and he went down to the floor. But that was my bench building days, and seeing Bill here reminded me of that.
Great. Well, welcome, Bill. We're glad to have you in here. Okay. And then we'll go to the next one here. This is from Mark Knottman, who's also a former Sea Org member and Scientologist. And he says, hello, Janis and Mark. Do you know anything about the current whereabouts of Frank McCall? The last time I communicated with him, he was in charge of the Sea Org Museum in Clearwater. Janis, do you have some information at all?
My information is that Frank passed away, and everything he collected, that whole museum, everything was turned back over to the Sea Org. I know they used to have a museum in the front of the old bank building, but I don't know what they have now. But Frank did pass away.
I can tell a brief story. Frank McCall was the dormitory in charge when I first got into the Sea organization, and we shared a dormitory with, I don't know, 6 guys or whatever. And the other guys, you know, we were all young. They didn't particularly care for Frank because he was kind of a stickler for having a clean room and a clean dormitory. But at that time, he was actually building a scale model of the Apollo, you know, that could be shown in the museum. And he also collected quite a few artifacts from the Apollo before it was sold, right?
Yes.
Great.
Sorry, I was trying to see if there's any questions.
No, that's okay. You got to pay attention too, Janis.
I know.
Okay, and then Martin has another question. Second question, do you know if John Danilovich is still in? If so, is he still on staff?
You know, last I heard on Danilovich was he was AOSH UK. I have no idea if he's still alive or if he's still there or anything.
Okay. All right, so that's that. Here's the next question here. This is from Vegan3. No sign of Jens Bogvad, Lyman Spurlock, Annie Broker, Frank McCall, David Mayo, Jeff Walker, or any of the hundreds I have forgotten or never knew. They're all unfortunately have passed away, right?
Yeah, everyone on that list has passed away. So that's why there's no mention of them. And I don't think they're forgotten. At least,
no, I'll just run it down. Jens Bogvad was famous. He was from Scandinavia, right? And he opened up.
Swedish.
He was Swedish, and I think he started an organization there or whatever, and he was in the Sea Org, and he built a lot of organizations in Europe and opened them up, and then eventually he came to the international base, and he was like a missionaire. He was like him and Captain Bill and Norman Starkey would always be sent as mission in charges because they were very capable of getting things done. And then eventually I think he was like the commanding officer of East US and the commanding officer of Los Angeles Day organization. And then I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, well, Jens boomed Munich org originally.
Munich, okay.
Munich was where he started off and boomed. And then later on, he did LA org, and then he went to Japan and opened up the Japan org, he and Jeannie.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great. And then Lyman Spurlock, I know a little bit about Lyman, but you probably know him better, Janis.
I recruited Lyman into the Sea Org, actually. He was an accountant, but he was also a trained Class 6 auditor, and his wife, Carol. And I was on a mission to recruit auditors to train directly under the Commodore. And so I got him to sign, and he became an auditor. And then he got moved back into accounting.
Yeah, and then eventually he was at Author Services. He basically handled L. Ron Hubbard's accounts.
Yes.
And then he did a lot of the corporate reorganization and all that sort of stuff. And then he was I guess he was in Religious Technology Center after I left, and unfortunately he's passed away. Of course, we know Annie Broker. We've talked about her in the Messenger video.
Well, let me bring something up on Annie Broker. In our audience here in the chat is her younger sister, Donna Donna
okay.
Jenkins. So, hi,
Welcome,
Donna.
Hi.
Anyway, yeah, so Donna's here chatting away.
I used to know Nancy too when I first got into the Sea Org. She was Nancy Carrasco. She was married to Pat Carrasco, and
Yes.
I think Nancy was in charge of Mimeo or something. I forget.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, she was in Mimeo.
Yeah. That's where they printed out all of the technical bulletins and policy letters and all that.
Donna,
Okay, go ahead.
Donna, there was a photo of you in the last video that we did because I covered TRC, where Jackie Sue was born.
Fabulous.
Okay, go ahead, Mark.
Okay, and then I was going to say we went over Frank McCall. David Mayo, of course, was famous as the senior CS flag and then the senior CS international. Jeff Walker also was the senior CS flag and then senior CS international. And Jeff actually, when he blew the Sea Org finally and escaped, he actually came to Las Vegas and he moved in and worked with us, right, Janis? Can you tell that story?
Yeah, well, he stayed with Paul and I for about the first 6 months until he got his feet on the ground, worked with us as a loan officer. Then he went and worked for a bank afterwards. He got a little upset with us because we didn't promote him to the director of all the loan officers. But that was because Jeff had a bit of a temper problem. So, and people who knew Jeff knew he had a temper problem.
Yeah.
But he could be a sweetheart when he didn't have that temper.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he continued doing loans and he got back in touch with us. And actually, a couple of months before he passed away, he came and visited Paul and I and stayed with us for a couple of weeks and had fun.
Yeah. Okay, thanks very much, Vegan 3. All right, we'll go to the next question here. This is from Eileen Bates Bordes. I would love to know the real skinny behind the mission purge back in the 80s. It was really the beginning of the decline. Yeah, I agree with you. That was kind of the beginning of the decline. You know, there was I don't know all the details. We're actually going to do an in-depth video on it. But Janis, do you have anything you wanted to comment on?
Well, I've always felt the whole mission purge was because of false reports being sent to the Commodore as to what the mission holders were doing. There were false reports, exaggerated reports, and Hubbard fell for it.
Yeah, and that was the reports going through David Miscavige up to L. Ron
They were
Hubbard.
coming from David Miscavige. They weren't going through him. He was the one writing the reports.
Yeah. And he was the only communication point really to get to L. Ron Hubbard through Pat Broker. And that was the line in terms of information going to L. Ron Hubbard.
Right.
Okay. Thank you, Eileen. All right, here's the next one. Matthew Pritchard. So was Ideal Orgs designed so people didn't have to travel to an advanced org for upper level processing? I can answer some of that.
Go ahead.
I mean, the Ideal Org program was set up basically so that, like, if orgs became St. Hill size, they were supposed to get what was called the Universe Corps, and the Universe Corps was supposed to be a reward for the staff, and they would be a team of people that would come and actually work at the organization and get the staff up the bridge, up the OT levels, and actually get them processed and up the bridge. And so that was the end reward for an organization getting to the size of old St. Hill. And of course, Miscavige, that never happened. Yeah, maybe there was a few Universe Corps or something like that, but I don't think they ever lasted that long because these organizations couldn't maintain after, Miscavige in charge. They couldn't maintain their production in terms of what they were doing, and they lost staff and public and everything else.
Right. But to answer the question on the traveling to the advanced orgs, no. The advanced orgs were there to deliver the OT levels, and the Ideal orgs were only up to class 5.
That's correct. Okay, great. Thank you, Matthew. All right, the next question is, love it. I'm guessing the L. Ron came from his name as an author, ?
Well, his first name was Lafayette, Ronald Hubbard, but he went by the name of Ron, and that's what he's always gone by, but he just kind of used to just sign L. Ron Hubbard, but he used the name Ron. And people would say, no, he used L. Ron. No, he didn't. It was Ron.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for your question. Here's the next one. Donna Jenkins. For those who don't know, my maiden name is Tidman. There's Donna. That's who you're talking about, right? That's
Yes.
Annie's sister. And
Yes.
welcome, Donna. We're really happy to see you here.
And she used the real sister. I know that I got an email from someone, well, a message from someone asking me to talk more about Annie Broker because she was her sister and wanted to know more. And I'm like, you are not Donna Tidman. So they got called out on that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Donna, and welcome to the show. We've got 171 people watching right now. Thank you so much. We're going to be here. If you've got questions, if you want to super chat, super sticker us, please do so. We'll go on to the next question here. And this is from Lovett. What is the B-Day game with the birthday game, right? And the birthday game was, L. Ron Hubbard. People always asked him what he wanted for his birthday, and I forget when it was. I think it was sometime in the 80s. He said that what he wanted was all organizations to be the size of Old St. Hill. And they worked out that in order to do that, the orgs needed to 5.4 times their production, their statistics. And so the game was to get the organization to 5.4x their gross income and their auditing hours and their student points and the number of people and all that. And once the organization had 5.4x'd all their statistics, they would then be deemed the size of Old St. Hill, and then they would win the Universe Corps, which was the auditing staff for the auditing people to come in and audit the staff up the bridge. Did I leave anything out, Janis?
No, that's good.
Okay, great. All right, thank you so much, love it. All right, we'll go to the next question here. And this is from Annette Bates. Janis, do you know if Mimi Rogers tried to get Tom Selleck into Scientology when they were together in 82, 83? Bless you all for what you're doing. Thank you so much, Annette.
Yeah, I have no information on that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we don't have any info either.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I know Mimi roomed with
Kirstie.
Kirstie Alley, but yeah. Kirstie got in through Narconon, not through Mimi.
That's right. Okay, thank you very much, Annette. All right, we'll go to the next question here. This is from Irma Webb. Did either one of you know John Osley or Jerry Noble? John was supposedly on the ship with Hubbard.
John Osley, yes, that's Ausley. Yes, I knew John Osley, and I actually have some photos from his wedding on the ship, and that will be included in one of my upcoming videos when I cover different things that happen on the ship.
And did you know Jerry Noble?
No.
No.
I know the name, but I did not know them.
Okay. Thank you very much, Irma. They'll go to the next question here. And this is from VJ Burke 70. Question: what are your interactions with Shelly? We don't have any now, but Janis, why don't you talk about when she was a messenger and your interactions with her, and then I'll talk about the last 6 years I was in the Sea Organization. I worked for her and David Miscavige. So go ahead. Yeah,
well, I knew Shelly's mother came to St. Hill in 1967 while I was there. I was 10, turned 11 years old, and she brought Shelly's older sister with her. So Flo and Clarice stayed with us. They actually rented. They were boarders in our house. And so I knew of Shelly. She was left back in Texas with her dad. And then when she was about 13 years old, she came to the ship. And I've gone over this. Claire Headley actually is doing a whole series on Where's Shelly. And I've interviewed with her, and I know Mark's interviewed with her, and Mark Headley interviewed with her. And that one's already been released, as Mark Headley and Claire talking about their experience with Shelly. But I've already talked, and I would suggest go ahead and watch this, because Claire has covered a lot of information on Shelly, and it's all there.
Great. And then I'll just briefly say I also did an hour and a half interview with Claire, which is coming out soon, I'm told. But basically, the last 6 years that I was in the Sea Organization, I ran David Miscavige's personal office at the gold base up at Gillham Hot Springs. And I had staff that basically handled their domestic needs, meaning their laundry, their room, their food, and also their administrative needs, copying, typing, anything like that. And then also I dealt with, anything that David Miscavige needed in regards to Golden Era Productions or anything having to do at the gold base. Now, I also dealt with Shelly because, she was his, assistant. And so, I worked for her for about 6 years, and I go into the details on that, like she said on Claire's video. So I'll leave it to that so that you'll be able to get an in-depth view there, because we could be talking here for a long time about Shelly, and that's what we've got right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
All right, we're at 197 viewers, almost at 200. We'll keep going.
Great.
Okay?
Welcome, everyone.
All right, here comes the next one. This is from AceX222. Do you find the existence of independent Scientologists and the Ron's Org network and other non-Scientology groups offensive? Isn't it strange these people think LRH wasn't the issue? Thanks. Go ahead, Janice. You want me to answer? I'll answer while
you answer. I've got someone
at the door.
I'll be right back.
Okay, she's got somebody at the door. All right. Anyway, I don't find it objectionable. I mean, the thing is that people can believe whatever they want to believe, and that's always been my thought. I could care less if somebody is a Christian, a Jewish, a Muslim, a Buddhist. As long as they're not hurting people, I have no problem with it. And the vast majority of Scientologists, they're not there to hurt people. They're not there to degrade people. But that being said, David Miscavige and a lot of the people in the Sea organization, it got to the point where they started degrading people and they started abusing people heavily. And that's when Janis and I both decided to leave. That was in 1990. And it got much worse after we left. Okay. Now, I'm no longer a Scientologist. I haven't had any Scientology processing since I left in 1990. But I did get all the way up into the OT levels before I left. Right. And I got a lot of benefit out of my lower grades auditing, the lower levels of the bridge. And they're my truths. I'm not going to, reject them or anything like that. Right. But anybody, I don't judge anyone for what they believe. Like I said, as long as they're not hurting anybody and they're trying to help others, more power to them. And if independent Scientologists want to continue to follow LRH, that's fine with me. I don't have any problem with it. How about you, Janis?
No, I don't have a problem. People have their own faith and beliefs, and whatever they want to believe, that's up. Who am I to tell them they can't? So I just let it be.
Yeah, and we don't have rose-colored glasses on when it comes to L. Ron Hubbard. Trust me, we're trying to lay out the history of what happened because it was much different back in the day, right? But by the same token, since leaving, I've read a lot of books and I've learned a lot of things that I didn't know before. And, I have a lot of criticisms of L. Ron Hubbard, and we've talked about them on our earlier videos and our earlier shows. So we're not here defending him either, but we're going to tell it like it is because we're trying to just tell the truth. Right, Janis?
Exactly. And I try to tell it how it happened and let people just kind of form their own opinion, whether it's good or bad, because there's so many different opinions out there. That I don't have to be right. I just have to say what the truth is as how I saw it. Correct. And I don't need to add my opinion to that.
Yeah, and obviously people are interested in what we have to say and the photographs that you provide and all that, because it's been a missing page in the history books. I mean, a lot of people don't know about those things. Now, that's not my dog.
That's mine.
Anyway, thank you, AceX222. We'll go to the next question here. All right. Sorry, I just did that one. All right, here we go. Here's the next one. Thank you for the super chat. This is from Wiggly Woo. We appreciate it. And it's for the camera fund. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. We have better cameras now, and we also have better technical support from last Saturday when, I couldn't be seen, and it was very frustrating for me, but Janis carried the ball and she scored the touchdown. Right, Janis?
That's right.
Thank you very much.
And I have better lighting now, too. Someone complained about my lighting, so I have better lighting, too. We're getting it together.
That's right. Okay, here we go. Next question. Marilyn Honig, thank you so much for the super chat, Marilyn. Hi, Mark and Janice. I'm enjoying your channel. I loved your potato story. There's some theta potatoes on their way to you. Question, did you get in more trouble for throwing the potatoes or the nuts and bolts? First of all, just so people know, Marilyn is the one who crochets all these wonderful, wonderful things for, Mark Headley and Mike Rinder and Aaron and all that. And she crocheted some potatoes after a story that Mark Headley told about a theta potato, right? And so we appreciate you, Marilyn, and all that you do. And, a lot of people are saying we're onion peelers here, so that might be the next thing to do. And if you don't like peeling onions, you can always peel potatoes, as far as
that's a good one. No, we didn't get in trouble for the nuts and bolts. It was for the potatoes.
Okay.
Because no one saw us throwing the nuts and bolts, but they did. Captain Bill caught us throwing the potatoes to the sailors in the U.S. Navy.
If anybody wants to hear that story again, it's on part 3 of our L. Ron Hubbard Messengers video, where Janice goes over and shows photographs of them as young messengers, having an interaction with U.S. sailors who were flirting with them at the time. Thanks very much, Marilyn. We appreciate it. Okay, we'll go to the next question here. This is from Pete in Toronto. Thank you so much for the super chat. We really appreciate it. I love your Scientology stories, but can you both describe what it was like and what you felt having a mortgage business during the financial crisis? Oh, that's a good one, Janice.
Well, we started the mortgage business before, and we did all right. And I actually went off on my own later on and started my own mortgage company, and I did great. And then, then the financial crisis happened.
2008, 2009, yeah. And I was working for you then.
And I actually sold my mortgage license at that time. And then I got hired by another company, and I'm still with them today. But it was rough going during that financial crisis. I actually was living on credit cards. Personally, I thought I'd saved enough money, but the financial crisis just kept going and going. We used up all our reserves and went onto credit cards, and, both got paying jobs there, but still kept, trying in the business until
and for me, it
started turning around.
For me, it was the same thing. I made a lot of money from 2000 until the crash in 2008, 2009. And actually, Janice, we were working with you at your company when basically you couldn't do a mortgage. Everything was in foreclosure. There was no refinancing. And actually, if you wanted to buy a house, everything was bank owned, and it took months, and you couldn't get anything done. And like Janice said, I got all the way down. I lost all my money. I lost everything. I lost all my business, all my customers. I had lots of customers that lost their homes, and it was awful. And to the point where I actually had to drop out of the mortgage business for about 6-7 years. And in those 6-7 years, I went through 10 different jobs, because I'd start working somewhere, and not in the mortgage industry. I was doing call center and marketing and that type of thing. And I'd be like the top salesperson and all that. And then next month later, they'd shut the company down. They go out of business. I'd get a severance from one company, and then go someplace else, and they'd close their doors. And we were independent contractors when we were in the mortgage business, so we couldn't go on unemployment, because we were self-employed. It's different now. After the crash in 2009, they made it so all mortgage companies had to pay on a W-2 and be hired as employees. So it's much safer now, much different. But then I eventually got my mortgage license again in 2016, and I did that up until last year when I retired. So it was definitely rough.
It was. And I had maybe 10 loan officers working for me at that time, and all of them had to quit and go and get paying jobs. No one could. We just couldn't survive it.
Yeah. No, it was terrible. Well, thank you, Pete in Toronto. We appreciate your super chat, and we'll go to the next question here. Okay, this is One Love's 51000. Question: how did you two reconnect after leaving? Your friendship is beautiful. Thank you for being here. Janice, I'll let you tell the story on that one.
Well, you know, we were friends in the Sea Org. At one point, everyone was living off base in an apartment building.
Yeah.
And there was 2 rooms to each apartment. And Mark and Julie were in one room, and Paul and I were in the other. And we were already friends at that point.
Yeah.
And then we used to play basketball
Yeah.
at the Gold Base together.
We had exercise time rarely.
Mark used to at least let me have the ball. I was the only girl out there trying to play, and the guys wouldn't include me. Mike Sutter was an ass, and he didn't like having me on the team or anything. But anyway, but Mark would always make sure I got the ball, and I'd go and try and get the basket or whatever. But and then when we left, I'd heard that Mark had left. I don't even remember who told me, but I then thought, well, I'm going to call Julie's dad in San Diego and see if he knows where Mark is. And I called, and Mark answered the phone.
Yeah, and Julie was my wife at the time, but she wouldn't leave the Sea Org with me, and I finally had to escape without her. And I had nowhere to go, so I ended up down at her father's house and stepmother's house down in San Diego. Now, she has an unusual last name. It's Catano. And so Janis just started looking. This is before the internet, folks. No cell phones. Okay. So Janis, I think you just went through the phone book or called information or something, right?
Yeah, I called information for Catano.
Yeah. Anyway, so I said the next day I went Janis, and so I drove up. They were up outside of Santa Paula, right? Santa Paula, California.
Yeah, we were up in Upper Ojai.
Yeah, you were up near Ojai with your brother and his family. And so I drove up there and we reconnected. And then your sister Terry and her husband Fernando were in Florida. And we decided all to get together, and we had no prospects for jobs. We decided, well, let's see if we can go into business together doing something. And we've told the story before, but basically there was a friend of Terry's, Janice's sister, who had a mortgage company in Los Angeles, and he was kind of an under the radar Scientologist. He was kind of off lines or whatever. But he said, hey, why don't you come to Las Vegas? I'm opening up a mortgage company there, and I'll teach you the business. And we had no other prospects, and it sounded good. So that's what we did. We moved to Las Vegas, lock, stock, and barrel.
Right.
And the rest is history. Thank you so much for the question. All right, we'll go to the next one here. All right, this is from Eileen again, Bates Bordeals. Helen Geltman was our mission holder. We never knew what really happened to her.
You know, all I know is Helen ended up going down in Texas and working for Alan Walters. And I believe she was down there when she passed away. I have a great picture of Helen and Frank Geltman just before he passed away, which I will show it one of these days through one of my videos.
What mission? Do you know what mission Helen Geltman had?
The New York mission on Manhattan.
Like in Manhattan?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Was she connected to Darby Simpson or anything like that?
No, Darby had CC New York, and the Geltmans had the Geltman mission, and Frank was the mission holder. And he would even come to the ship for some auditing. And every time he came, he'd bring us New York Masters cheesecake. And everyone just loved it when Frank came. And he was a great guy, and so was Helen. And actually, I know they had a child, Marky. I don't know what happened to him, but he'd be in his 40s by now.
Okay. Hey, we're up to 257 viewers right now. Welcome, everybody. We really appreciate you being here. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chats. If you want to super chat or super sticker us, we love it. You know, like I said, we're happy to do. We're going to answer everybody's questions, but we're happy to do this for you. Anyway, so thank you, Eileen, and we'll go on to the next question here. And this is from Dancer13. Question: what do Pat Broker after he lost his power? Do you believe he got paid by DM to keep silent? In other words, what happened to Pat Broker, and did DM pay him off? All I know is that he was gone. I don't believe that he got paid off because he was threatened. We're going to do a video in detail about this whole thing because people don't realize, you know, what Pat had been doing the last year or so that he was hanging around while L. Ron Hubbard was alive, and we'll go into details on that. But I do know that, you know, the story's out there as well, and it's true that Dave Miscavige hired 2 private investigators to watch Pat Broker 24/7, okay? And it went on for 20 something years, and they got paid over $25 million during that time period, and eventually sued Scientology because they said that they were owed more money for the work that they did, and Scientology settled with the private investigators. Janice, do you have any information on Pat?
No, I do just what you've pretty much covered, but do know this: Pat was not in good graces with L. Ron Hubbard when he passed away.
Yeah.
And we will cover that.
Yeah. Okay, Dancer 13, thank you so much for your question. We'll go on to the next one here. And this is from Karen Garrison. Question: what happened to the Apollo after everyone came ashore permanently?
Okay. It got sold, and it took a couple of years to sell her, but she got sold, and she was down in Texas, and the company that purchased her were going to turn her into a floating restaurant or something like that. However, a train came off its track at the dock and hit her, and she became scrap.
She got hit by a train.
Hit by a train.
And then who was the there was a Sea Org member who, there was like 2 people that were on the Apollo the whole time until it got showed. I met him. I met one of them, right? He came.
No, we had there was
Vegas?
about seven crew on the ship.
But I meant there was one guy who came to Vegas recently, right? And we saw him. I remember talking to him.
Yes, Paul. He passed away. He passed away from COVID around the same time as my Paul passed away from COVID.
Okay. What was his last name?
Koala. Paul Koala.
Paul Koala. Oh, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah. And they had nothing to do. They basically sat on the ship while it was waiting to be sold, right?
Yeah, they were there for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Karen, thank you so much for your question. We'll go to the next one here. This is from AceX222 again. Question: do you find the existence of independent Scientologists? Oh, we already answered that question, didn't we? Yeah, we answered that one. Sorry about that. Got to start again. All right, we'll go to the next question here. Stacy Y, super chat. Thank you so much. Love the stories. Speak the truth. Thank you very much, Stacy. We really appreciate it. Right, Janice?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. We'll go to the next one here. And this is another super chat from Amanda Mangles. No question. Just wanted to send love. Love seeing you 2 live and hearing your stories. Glad to have you on SPTV. Thanks for all you do. You're inspiring. Well, that's really nice, Amanda. We really appreciate it. And Janice and I, we've only been doing this for about 5 weeks, but we've been getting a lot of satisfaction out of this, haven't we, Janice?
Yeah, I'm enjoying this. And it actually helps my memory going.
Plus, you're going through all your old photo books and archives.
But as you get old, you're supposed to do things to help your memory, and this is certainly putting it to the test.
But it's also, you know, we've had people reach out to us who are former Scientologists, former Sea Org members, and basically it's helping them. And that's really what we're doing. We're trying to put information out there, because I've said this before in other videos. In Scientology, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. You could be working in the same area and you have no idea what the other person's working on. And so hopefully some of the information that we're giving helps clear things up for people. Thank you so much, Amanda. We really appreciate it. All right, here's the next one. This is from Marilyn. We know a lot about David Miscavige's father, but what do we know about his mother?
Well, we know that she was a nurse, and she had 4 children. She had Ronnie Jr., Dave and his twin, Denise, and Lauren.
Her name was Loretta. His
Loretta was her name. And she actually, when Dave Miscavige was maybe about 5, she used to call him Little Hitler. So she already knew what he was like. And I do cover a story about her in one of the last ones. I cover a story about us going on a ski trip and her refusing to call him sir. So you can, if you haven't seen that story, go back and watch that video.
And I can fill in a little bit. David Miscavige, well, Ron Miscavige Sr. and his wife Loretta they got into Scientology actually at the mission in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, back in the 70s. Okay. And that was my dad eventually became the executive director of that mission in the late 70s. This was after David had joined the Sea Organization. And also, Ron and family had left the New Jersey organization and they went over to the New Jersey mission. They went over to the Pennsylvania organization in Ardmore, Pennsylvania. And my dad remarried to a Class 6 auditor at the Cherry Hill mission. And she was the auditor for Ron Miscavige and also for Loretta. And she told me some stories, which I won't repeat here. But basically, they both got involved in Scientology, and they went to St. Hill and all that. But then when Ron had some problems, and he covers them in his book, where he got arrested in the I think it was the mid 80s or whatever. And David Miscavige, Marty Rathman, and Osa, they helped him out of his legal situation. And Miscavige brought his mother and his father up to the gold base, and this was a confidential location. People didn't know where it was. And you had to get security clearances and auditing, sec checking and all this other stuff, even to come up there. Well, Miscavige, of course, waived all of that. And this was when L. Ron Hubbard was still alive. And he brought his parents up to the gold base because he wanted to sort it out. And he basically ordered his dad and Loretta to get divorced, and that Ron was to join the Sea Organization. And that's what happened. They ended up getting divorced. Ron Miscavige Sr. joined the Sea Organization, and then he was in the Sea Organization for many years until he finally escaped. And that's a true story. That's what happened, right, as far as Ron and Loretta. Okay, thank you, Marlene. Next question here. L. Ron Hubbard, good to see you back, sir. Question, Mark and Janis, did either of you ever have dealings with Tommy Davis?
No, I didn't.
He was after our time. I know he was the son of Ann Archer, who was an actress or whatever, but that all of that happened after we left in 1990, as far as I know. Okay, thank you so much for your question. Next one, here we go. DK, not to be particularly rude, but talking about lists of random Scientologists nobody knows except the people who worked with them isn't very interesting. Okay, DK. Well, we're answering because there are people who do know, and it may not be you, but that's okay. There's plenty of time and we can answer lots of questions. All right. Next question here. Edna Lead, question. I saw a lot of similarities between Dianetic auditing and the whole BT thing, especially book auditing, especially book auditing. You also?
You can answer that one.
Yeah. I don't know about similarities. I mean, Dianetic auditing, I mean, I did very little of it because it kept getting moved around on the grade chart in terms of when you need to do it. I did do the OT levels, and I did deal with body thetans or BTs. Now, that was confidential. Scientologists did not know until the internet. If you weren't in Scientology and up to that OT level, you did not know what was on it. It was strictly confidential. So people getting into Scientology, they had no idea about the Xenu story or BTs or anything like that because it wasn't out there. And then somebody stole the materials and put them out on the internet, and the rest is history. Okay. But I don't know. I mean, it's, I know one thing about Dianetic auditing. I mean, Ned is New Era Dianetics, right? And then the upper OT levels, there's two of them that are called NED for OTs, New Era Dianetics for OTs. So I think that might be what you're talking about being similar, because L. Ron Hubbard came up with New Era Dianetics for OTs, and it had to be related somehow, but I don't know exactly. I hope that answers the question. You have anything to add, Janis?
You brought up the OT levels being stolen, and that reminded me of Robin Scott, who dressed up in a Sea Org uniform. He was no longer in Scientology. He dressed up in a Sea Org uniform, and he went into the advanced organization in St. Hill in Denmark. And he said he was on mission and needed a copy of the OT materials. And they handed them over to him.
Yeah.
And that's how they got out into the field.
Yeah. And he
Yeah.
eventually got our religious technology center went after Robin, and he actually got charged and convicted, I think,
Oh
going
yeah.
to prison.
Yeah, they went after him hard for that.
Yeah. All right, Edna, thank you so much for your question. We'll go to the next one here. Dancer 13, question for Janis. What did LRH do all day in the ship? What was a normal schedule? Greetings and blessings from Costa Rica.
Okay, what he did is, yeah, he would get up usually around 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, go out to his office. Ken, who we showed you we did an interview with, was his personal communicator, and Ken would have all of his traffic dispatches laid out on his desk. And so the Commodore would just go in, sit at his desk, and just start working on whatever Ken had put there. And then when the steward came in with breakfast, he'd get up and go over and have breakfast. Breakfast changed over the years. At one point, it was like orange juice with a raw egg, and then he'd have fish like a Kipler. Sometimes later on, he had some eggs and toast. It just varied. But Kipler was, they used to send that over from England, and that's what you ate for years for breakfast. Then after breakfast, he might go for a walk around the deck, go back, finish his dispatch traffic. Then he might, from his dispatch traffic, there might be something he'd want investigated, or there's something on his mind and he'd write a policy, or he'd get up and he'd go talk to one of his aides who were located on the same deck as his office. Or sometimes he'd do photography. It depended on what type of things he had his attention on. He very much enjoyed photography. Even out on deck, he might see a sunset and tell us to go get his camera and get that. And we'd have to run real fast before the sun sets and he loses the shot, or the sailboat sails away from the sunset. And then if we were at sea, he'd go up on the bridge and see where we're at and see if everyone knew where we were at, because there was many times he would say, "We're lost." And he'd get out the compass and the chart and get on the radar and the sextant and, try and locate our exact spot. So it really depended on different things and projects going on, or there might be a period where he was getting all the covers for the books being redone. And so the artwork for that would be sent up to him, and there'd be message runs back and forth on fixing different things. And then every Thursday, though, the stats would come in from the orgs, and he would stay up late, usually till maybe 6 a.m, reviewing all the stats and all the proposed telex traffic from management to go out to the orgs that were struggling. And he'd go through each continent, and then he'd look for the different orgs that were struggling and give little programs to them, or send a telex out to the executive director of that org.
We're at 309 viewers right now. That's the most we've had. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. If you have questions, go ahead and write in the chat. We'll answer your questions. If you want to super chat us or super sticker us, great, and all that. And we'll go on to the next question here. Thank you very much, Dancer 13. Okay, so we got Shari Lynn. Love the talks about old timers. Glad to know where people are. Thank you so much. We appreciate that.
Good.
Okay, next question here. Love it. What is a mission purge? Just as that sounds, getting rid of folks?
No.
Purge?
Yeah, that's for the mission holders, where they got rid of all the mission holders. So
yeah, it's like a flush. They flushed them.
Yeah.
They were no longer in. They were declared suppressive people. Their missions were taken over, and these were franchises that were owned. I mean, these people, bought and paid for these franchises, started them up, and they kicked them out, and Scientologists took them over.
Yeah, I grew up in a mission. My parents were mission holders, and they paid their 10% to Worldwide, and they delivered Scientology. And missions was an easygoing business, and some mission holders, they supported themselves on it. Some of them didn't. They just did it because they wanted to help people. And there was a point where some of the mission holders felt they weren't getting enough exchange for their 10%, and they were talking to Bill Franks, who was the executive director, INT, and Miscavige heard about it and basically wrote a report to LRH saying there was a mutiny. The mission holders were mutiny. And from there, it had, LRH always supported the mission holders. And he would say, hey, they go out ethics, just pull them in, clean them up, and send them back out. They are outfeeded. They are what feed the orgs and make the orgs better and bigger. And then people are supposed to just flow up the bridge that way. But the Purge here was just killed off mission holders, and they came up, well, the Commodore did, he came up with the finance police. And the finance police was like the Gestapo, and they just went out destroying anything in their way. And we'll go into greater detail with that in another video.
That was all in 1982 and 83. And
Yes.
Miscavige ran that whole operation.
He ran the whole thing, and he was the one doing the
They
reports.
stripped the missions of their accounts. They took their money, and it was a bloodbath. It was financial bloodbath, and it was many people believe the beginning of the end as far as the upward movement of Scientology. Thank you so much.
I agree.
Yeah. Here's the next question here. Oh, thank you so much for the super chat. This is Calico 26. Janis, will your sister ever speak out?
Yes, I believe she will.
We just had dinner with her last night. We have a weekly dinner. We all get together, and she's very successful. And we would love to have her come out because I'm sure she has a lot to say too. All right, thank you so much. Next question. GM Flower question: where did you go, and what kind of funds did you survive on when leaving? I can talk about that first. I mean, I got paid because I worked for David Miscavige. He had to get paid bonuses, right? So he got paid a lot of money, and he and Shelly and everybody in Religious Technology Center, we got bonuses, right? So I had money that I'd saved up because there was nothing really to spend it on. I actually saved up to $26,000 while I was working for David Miscavige.
Wow.
And then my wife, Julie, and I wanted to buy a car, and we paid $6,500 cash for a used Honda CRX, which I loved that car. But so by the time that we left, I think I had like $16,000 or $17,000 in our bank account, and my wife wouldn't leave with me. So basically, I said, look, I'm writing you a check for half the money. You keep the furniture. I'm taking the car, and that's how it went. So I started out. I think I had about $8,000, and then I discovered that I had about $40,000 in credit available on credit cards, because we also learned when we were in the Religious Technology Center how to get a credit card. And there were several people in CMO International and RTC where we got American Express cards and then MasterCards and Visas, because we shopped. The only way we could go shopping really was catalog shopping. So we would use the credit cards, and then we would just pay off the balance. We had a zero balance on all these cards. So I had all this credit available and also with cash, but I blew through that money in a year because we made no money that first year and doing mortgages. And, but that's how basically I got started. How about you, Janis?
What happened is, well, I was pregnant when we left.
Yeah.
And went to my brother. And from there, I started babysitting. My sister-in-law helped find people that I could babysit. And I'll tell you, not having grown up around kids, me babysitting coming out of the field, I recognized it myself where I was like, do some fun things with these kids. So we were going to make some cookies. And I'm watching myself as I'm being like a drill sergeant, trying to make cookies and don't spill this, And that's when I was like, I just got to relax, back off. Anyway, so that's how I made some money. And then I contacted Marshall Goldblatt, may he rest in peace. But Marshall had been a close friend of the family. And I offered him, I had invested some money in those prints that ASI sells from the Battlefield Earth and Mission Earth books.
Yeah, they were limited edition.
Or something like that. Anyway, so I asked Marshall, I said, I don't want to be just giving money. Will you buy these from me? And so Marshall did. And that's how I got some money to get us started. And then we moved to Vegas. And of course, we got a 2-bedroom apartment. My sister and her husband in one room, Paul and I in another, and Mark was on the couch. And as we started up the mortgage business from nothing, and the rest is history.
Yeah, and then we went from there, ups and downs, but you know what, we ended up on our feet, and we actually are doing really well now, and that's, at our age, we have to be thankful for that, because there's so many people that are still in the Sea organization, people that we work with that are still there, prisoners, and it's just awful.
Well, and some of them, they're my age, and they're like, if they came out, that have no social security, they would have no family, they don't know where to go. They don't know that if they came banging on our door, we'd take them in. They just don't know that, and they're kind of stuck.
Exactly. Thank you for the question. All right, we'll go to the next question here. GP question: has anyone that has been a member of Scientology ever told David Miscavige what they think of him to his face? I did. That was right before he beat me up. And that was the one and only time I ever talked back to him and gave it to him. Okay. And I did it in a pleasant way. But then after he beat me up, then I stood up and looked him right in the face. And I said, you notice I didn't lay one finger on you. And nobody ever really talked back to him like that before. But I never saw anybody else talk back to him. I didn't even fight back, because he always has an entourage. So literally, if you tried to fight back or do something, they literally would jump on you.
Yeah. Well, I know Tom DeVock had tried to start a mutiny, but no one stood up and supported him.
This was later, after we left.
Yeah, after we'd left, I'd heard that Tom had tried to start a mutiny. Yeah. But when you start it, you got to expect everyone else to stand up and say they're Spartacus too. But if no one does that, you're on your own and you're in trouble.
Yeah, and then I was out the door. I as soon as he laid his hands on me, it was a matter of weeks before I was gone, because there's no way. There's no way. This is not Scientology. It's not what I'm getting involved with. Thanks for the question. Here's the next one. This is from Chris and Sarah Moore. Question: how much do the OT levels cost to take, and what does Scientology do if a person is broke and can no longer take any of the courses? Well, I can tell you, if they're broke and they can't take the courses, they recruit them for staff, because they promise that you'll get free auditing and free training if you go on and work on staff or join the Sea organization and sign a $1 billion contract, right? The OT levels, I don't know how much that costs. It's tens of thousands of dollars. And their main reason is because there's hours and hours of solo auditing yourself that you have to do. And you pay for that. You pay for those services. And it can take a long time. There's also auditing where there's somebody, a professional with you doing it. And it can take years and years and years. So it's a lot of money. Do you have anything to add to that, Janice?
No.
Okay. Thanks for the question. Here's the next one. Toph: how much authority did Pat Broker have, if any, when he was claiming to be in charge of the Sea Org? I read he claimed to be in telepathic communication with LRH after his death. Was that true? LOL.
Yes.
Yeah, LRH told him, get the hell out. Don't stay. Miscavige is a nutcase.
Let me just say this. Pat was drinking more than a 6-pack a day.
Yeah, Pat had a drinking problem that we didn't know about. I mean, he literally was away. He was not in the same location where L. Ron Hubbard was. His wife, Annie, was there taking care of L. Ron Hubbard and a guy named Steve Pfaff, who we called Sarge. They were the only two people there with Hubbard the last year of his life. Pat was the go-between for communications and all that, but L. Ron Hubbard had basically banished him from the ranch at Creston. And so he did not really have much in the way of authority. And we'll go into more detail later.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the next question here. GP question: have any ethics officers left Scientology? I'm sure they have. What do you know?
There are. I mean, over the 50 years of the Sea Org, yes, there are many that have left, but there's many that are still there.
That's right. Okay, here we go. Next question here. This is from Cal. We're up to 315 viewers right now. Welcome to the channel. If you have any questions, please ask. Cal, are you two actually have been on the OT levels? Did you witness many psychosis kind of breakdowns of members on the levels? Can we have some dark insights? Thanks, enjoying the show. I never saw, not on the OT levels when I was doing it, I didn't see any breakdowns or anything like that. I mean, we had some people that had some psychoses, but they generally were not, they didn't make it very far up the bridge. How about you, Janis?
Well, let me tell an experience of my own when I was on OT3. And I would have, I don't know that you would call them nightmares or something, but it wasn't like I was dreaming, but I was. It was like I would wake up thinking there was a snake hanging on my blanket, waving the damn thing, trying to get the snake off. And then I think it's over there. And it would, these type of things would wake me up. And it only happened when I was on that level. I didn't have it happen before. I didn't have it happen afterwards. I had another time I'm sleeping on a mattress on the floor in the RPF, and it was as if this cabinet was being pushed down on top of me. And I'm screaming, waking up, trying to move from the cabinet. So that is a psychosis. And that is an experience I went through personally. Yeah. But I didn't have it before. I don't have it afterwards.
Okay. Thank you so much for your question, Cal. We'll go on to the next one here. And this is from Fly GIV. Hey, thank you so much for the super chat. We really appreciate it. Just want to thank you for sharing your experiences. Great job. Keep those stories coming. Janis, we will do that, won't we?
We definitely will. We're in this. We're enjoying it.
And if for anybody who joined late, we have a new series that we're starting on St. Hill, the St. Hill Manor in East Grinstead in England in the 60s. And of course, we're carrying on with our stories about L. Ron Hubbard's messengers, of which Janis was one of the original messengers. And you can watch all of those on our channel. If you haven't seen them, go back and watch them because they're videos. It's not like a live chat like this where we're answering questions. We're actually telling stories. We're showing photographs, and we hope you enjoy them. Okay, so thank you so much for that super chat. Let's go to the next one here. And GP, question, could LRH have been given the Scientology beliefs and doctrine from demons?
Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah, we don't know. We don't know. All right. Next question here. Let's see here. Sorry about that. I'm running behind here. I missed it. Here we go. Okay. This is from Goldie. Hi, Goldie. I feel like if Scientology exists forever, that's okay. Just the abuse has to stop. That's totally our viewpoint as well. Totally our viewpoint. The abuse has to stop. That's why we left. I'm glad I left when I did, but to be honest with you, if that abuse wasn't going on, I probably would have stayed. And who knows? I mean, that's 33 years now. A lot of things could have changed in that time, but I had no reason to leave except for the abuse. How about you, Janis?
I'm the same way. There was the abuse and it was no longer your life and you couldn't make your own decisions and your freedom was getting taken more and more away from you. It was as if you were a frog put in a pot and they just started, increasing the water heat temperature. And it was time to go because it wasn't what it was supposed to be anymore.
Right. And just so people know, we were there to help people. That's why we were there. We thought we were helping. We thought we were changing the world. That sounds idealistic, but that's what we thought. Okay. And a lot of the abuses that you've heard about and that we've heard about occurred after we left. Now, there were abuses that went on with Hubbard and with Miscavige before, but not to the degree that Miscavige took it to. He is a sadistic human being, okay? And he's done a lot of sadistic and selfish and greedy things. And that's not why we got involved in Scientology. And the first time we saw that it basically was crossing the line, we left. We decided that was it. We're gone. Thank you for your question, Goldie. We love what you do with the moderating. Thank you, Goldie. Okay, the next question. Super chat, Wiggly Woo. Thank you so much, Wiggly Woo. We really appreciate it. Janice and Mark, did you retain any fondness for LRH after everything that has been revealed about him?
Well, you always have, no matter how brutal someone is, you always, if there were good memories, you still have those good memories.
Right.
And that's what I have.
I'm the same way. Go ahead.
I have good memories and I have bad memories.
Yeah.
And things that I would never want to put others through. And when it was my job to get more messengers, I got in trouble because I wasn't getting more messengers. And that's because I didn't want to recruit people to have to live the same life I had.
Yeah. And you've even said in the earlier video, you wouldn't have, at 12 years old, 13 years old, your daughter, you would never, or your son, you would have never let them do what your parents did, putting you on a ship in the Sea Org, right?
Right, exactly. I looked at my kids at 11 years old. I'm like, what were my parents thinking?
Mm-hmm.
I could never have done that.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. I have fond memories of working in the Sea organization and in Scientology. Otherwise, I wouldn't have joined, and I wouldn't have stayed as long as I did. And I'll tell you, the best thing about it is the people that have left, they're comrades in arms. I mean, when they come out, if somebody came out, if Shelly came out tomorrow, we would welcome her, despite the fact, all the things that went down. Same thing with Mike Rinder. Lots of stuff happened after we left, and Mike Rinder was involved in it, but we're friends with Mike Rinder now. We don't hold any grudges, but I love the people that were involved. And I have a lot of, we have a lot of long-term relationships, right, Janice?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Thank you, Wiggly Woo. We appreciate your super chat. Thank you. Here's the next question. Matthew Pritchett. I feel like it's very stigmatized in the SP to talk about any positive experiences or gains from Scientology, and I'm glad you covered it you're covering it in a neutral way. Thank you, Matthew, and thank you. I got your direct message on Twitter, and I appreciate your comments on that. Yeah, we're just trying to show both sides. Like I said, we're not trying here to defend it. We're just telling the truth and the history in terms of what was going on. Because guess what? It took off. Things were happening. Wait till you see the pictures from St. Hill. Okay. These were your great-grandparents, your grandparents, and your parents, okay, in the 60s. This is 60 years ago. And they're all dressed up in suit and tie, and they look like, they're straight out of the 50s and 60s. I mean, we're not all hippies. That all happened in the late 60s and 70s, right, Janice?
Exactly. Yes, they did.
These were well-to-do people that got involved in Scientology, and they got involved for a reason, and we're just trying to show what that reason was.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Matthew. Next question here. Araya Schleider. I probably butchered your name. I'm sorry. Question. I'm an American Israeli Jew. What do you think drew so many Israelis and Jews to Scientology? And Janice, you have some experience with that. You've actually been to Israel, right, to visit the Scientologists there?
No, I was supposed to go, but COVID happened, so that had to be canceled. No, I went to Moscow.
Right. You've gone to talk to independent Scientologists who wanted to know about L. Ron Hubbard, right?
Yeah, I put together slideshows for them.
Yeah. But as far as Israelis and Jews, I mean, there's a mission there that actually broke away from Scientology, right? And they're independent Scientologists. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you can add to that?
No, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for your question. We appreciate it. Next question. Chuck Beatty in the house. Hi, Chuck. Chuck is a long-term Sea Org member that we both know very well. Janice, you sometime told of the project you were on to somehow fix staff pay. Will that be in your next book, or can you tell it now? Hi, Mark. You were on staff pay. I remember that.
Yeah. Hi, Chuck. Yeah. On staff pay, it didn't happen. I mean, I worked on it. I would take my proposals to the Commodore, and he would go over it with me. And, while I was doing it, he realized my education wasn't the best because I had to work with decibels.
Mathematics.
I only knew how to add and minus and divide and multiply.
Yeah,
I was
Janice,
never
no
taught.
high school GED or high school education for Janice. Yeah.
Exactly. So so I'm going over staff pay, and he's giving me all these percentages and so forth, and I'm like, it's like over my head. So he had to then give me a crash course in percentages. Anyway, so yeah, I worked out staff pay. I worked out different things. Went over that with him, and he left before I actually finished the project, where I had so many questions I still wanted to clear up with him. So we ended up doing some pilots, and I was just not happy with how it went. And I ended up getting removed and ComEv'd because I didn't want to implement it. I thought it would be destructive to put in the actual percentages he kept saying to use. It would have made the staff pay less than what it was.
A comment, by the way, is a committee of evidence. It's a justice action in Scientology.
Right. So it never got finished, as far as I know, but I did do some good things from that, where I actually got the Commodore's approval, where a freeloader bill disappeared after every 5 years of service in the Sea Org. So that way, if someone was in for 15 years, they didn't end up with a $500,000 freeloader bill. But every 5 years, it got taken back to zero.
Yeah.
Or 20%, So I did that, and I thought that was very helpful. I have no idea if they're still doing that, but that was approved and gone over with the Commodore, so that people who did leave could get back in good standing easily without having to come up with ridiculous amount of freeloader debt when they were there volunteering their life anyway.
Yeah.
So, Chuck, I hope that kind of answers your question.
By the way, we're up to 354. We were at 356 viewers right now. We want to welcome everybody. Thank you so much. We enjoy answering your questions, and we'll go on to the next one here. This is from Veronica Bombria. Thank you so much for the super chat, Veronica. We really appreciate it. I would love to volunteer for this, but I'm not that computer savvy. Has anyone started a database of where is this Scientologist? You're looking at her right there. She's the database for where is this Scientologist?
Well, Sea Org members mostly. Glenn Samuels, who's since passed away, he used to call me 1-800-XSO.
Also the Oracle, that's the other name for her, Janice, too. Because if you want to know something about some ex-Sea Org member or Scientologist that was, well-to-do, Janice would be the person to go to.
But I want to bring something up on that Oracle. Yes, I was called the Oracle, but the person that uses that email in different Scientology chat groups, that is not me. That is a person who is really not an Oracle, and they really don't know that much. But they use that title, and some people think it's me. It's not me.
Yeah. And Janice just got back from a cross-country trip with our friend Cheryl Detcheff, who is ex-Sea Org, and you saw over 110 Scientologists and Sea Org members on your cross-country trip. Isn't that right?
Yeah, we did 7 weeks. We did over 9,000 miles, 19 states, 46 towns, and we saw 110 people.
And a partridge in a pear tree.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Veronica. Here's our next question here. Okay, Cal, did you meet Ron before he started writing the OT levels? Enjoying the show? Not me. I was, that was already done before that. How about you, Janice?
Yeah, before he was writing them. I don't know.
Started. Wasn't that in the 60s, right?
I first met him in 1966, and then I joined the Sea Org in 68, and he was already on the OT, doing the OT levels at that time. So he could have just been starting them. I don't know.
Well, we can't answer this, though. He used to audit himself almost every day, right? I mean, he literally that was his research. He would just try these things out on himself. Is that right?
Yeah, we, as messengers, we would go set up his auditing room, set up the e-meter, the paper, all that kind of stuff. And he'd get up, and we'd get him a snack before he went in session. And then, it was a daily thing. He'd go in session, and we'd keep the ship quiet. Or wherever we were living, we would keep that area quiet.
And then the famous story about Knott's, Ned for OTs, was David Mayo audited or processed L. Ron Hubbard when he was on death's doorstep, right? And out of that came Ned for OTs, and that then later became, David Mayo wrote a bunch of the issues, and then he claimed that he was the one that discovered it, and Scientology sued him, and yada yada yada. Am I right, Janice?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, Cal, thank you so much for your question. Here's the next question. Love Sherlock. Question: what was the first fun thing you two did after you left C of S, after you left the Church of Scientology? Go ahead, Janice.
First fun thing. Oh, we camped out on the beach. We showed up at my brother's doorstep, and my brother wasn't home. He was down camping at Point Mugu in California. But we were told by a neighbor that he was coming back up to get some things. So I waited, and my brother came in to his house to find me sitting on his couch, and I hadn't seen him in 8 years. So he was just kind of shocked to see me. And then he was like, well, the family's down the beach. Why don't you join us? So we went down there and hung out with my brother. We met his 3 kids we'd never met before. We saw his wife, who I knew as a kid, and his mother-in-law, who I knew. So that was the fun thing, and just hanging out at the beach with the kids and getting ice cream from the ice cream truck and just having the freedom. I didn't have to be at any muster.
Yeah. For me, I went on a road trip immediately. I got in my little Honda CRX and I drove up the Pacific Coast Highway from Los Angeles all the way up to San Francisco, and then across to Lake Tahoe, and then down to Las Vegas, and then around down to San Diego. I did a big loop, and that's all I did when I first left. Is that I'd always wanted to go up the Pacific Coast Highway, along up to Big Sur and the Hearst Castle and all that stuff. And then shortly thereafter, because I had money, like I said, I flew to Hawaii by myself, and I spent, I guess, about 8 to 10 days in Hawaii. And then when I landed back, that was the day that Janis called me and found me, was the day I got back from Hawaii. When I got back from Hawaii, it all crashed in on me like, what the hell am I going to do? I have no idea what I'm going to do. Thank you for the question, Love Sherlock. Here's the next question. Veronica Bombria. Has anyone made a database of the people? Okay. Oh, has anyone made a database of people looking for Scientologist family or friends? Not that I'm aware of.
So. No.
Yeah. Thank you for your question. Okay, Cal, question again. Did the crew and you believe Ron would have a total recall and studied books from the age of 3, or you was like, it's nice stories, doesn't matter, it's BS?
Exactly. Nice stories, doesn't matter, it's BS. You just stand there and you listen to the stories be repeated. And
yeah, I never met L. Ron Hubbard, but I'm actually rereading the book Barefaced Messiah right now by Russell Miller, which was the book that basically turned me, see the fallacies in L. Ron Hubbard and his, what was wrong with him. But when I'm rereading his early life, he basically was a storyteller. He just dreamed up in imagination. That made him a successful author at the time, and he told all sorts of whoppers, you know what I mean? But to the people that knew him or were around him at that time, they just thought he was a very descriptive storyteller and had a lot of charisma. Thanks, Cal, for that question. Next question. What is a mission holder? The boss? Yes. The mission holder is the franchise holder. Basically, Scientology was sold like McDonald's or Burger King. They were franchises, and you could pay, and you got books and you got materials, so you could open up your own Scientology delivery service in your town. And you would buy a territory, basically, and that's what it was. So the mission holder was the boss of the mission. And then they would usually hire an executive director and then hire other staff in order to man the organization. And they were like they were supposed to be a mini Scientology organization, but some of them became very large. They became much larger than the Scientology organizations in their area. Okay, next question. I1ABASP. If things had gone differently and the brokers had gotten control of C of S, do you think you would have still left? That's hard for me to say. You know Annie and Pat, but I actually don't know because Pat obviously had his screws loose too. So I don't know.
Yeah, it is hard to say because there was other influences going on as well through to Annie. But
Yep.
Annie had been my best friend growing up, and Pat had been a close friend as well for a long time. And even when they were in control, Pat backed me on a couple of things where I was being clobbered by Vicky Azaran, who was working for Annie at the time. So it's hard to say.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for your question. Next question. Goldie, I can't understand why DM sabotaged the missions. Neither can we.
It's the most.
He thought they're ripping off L. Ron Hubbard and they're taking money from Scientology, and I'm going to show them who's boss. I mean, that's literally what he thought, and that's the way Hubbard went after it too. After that, after he got the false reports, he was like, "Take them over." You know what I mean? He wanted them to pay. He thought he was getting ripped off. Okay,
Right.
thanks, Goldie. Next question. Victoria Morris, how different C of S would have been if DM never took over? If he never took over, who knows, because it's been a long time, but it would have been a lot different. Janice and I have opinions about different people that could have run Scientology. There were a lot of really good people in key positions.
And none of those.
Go ahead.
And none of those people are abusive type people.
No, there was an executive director international, Guillaume Lesevre. He was known for building Scientology organizations throughout Europe. There were key executives in the executive strata and key messengers in the Watchdog Committee and key people in Religious Technology Center who were good people. So who knows? But I know it would have been a lot better because you wouldn't have had the Tasmanian devil tearing everything apart. Anything else, Janice?
Nope, you got it.
Okay, good. All right, next question here. Marilyn, thank you so much for the super chat, Marilyn. Thank you for your full answer to my question. I'll watch the other video. Great, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Okay, and here's the next question here, and this is from Goldie again. If you're currently in Scientology, please know that there's much love for you out here. The world wants you back, and the Aftermath Foundation is the answer, and they do great work. They do the work that we used to do is here in Las Vegas. We were the way station for many people who left the Sea Organization and needed a place to stay and needed a job, and now the Aftermath Foundation, they've taken that over, and they do a wonderful job, right, Janice?
Yeah, they do. They've been very helpful.
All right, let's go to the next question here. GP, you have completely ignored all of my 3 questions. Whoever is putting up the questions for them to see. I think we answered your questions. I don't know who this is.
I know GP keeps saying this, so I don't know what his questions are that we haven't answered.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry about that. I mean, I know we've answered some questions of yours, but anyway. All right, next question here. Chuck Beatty again. Hold on. Clicking on here. Chuck Beatty, 2 questions. A, explain RTL, Ron's traffic liaison. Who was Mark Yeager's wife? I guess she was the RTL. Oh, yeah, she was. She was
Michelle.
RTL. I remember that. Michelle. Yeah. And it says, see, the staff pay project you worked on, Janice, what became of it? Okay, we already answered the staff pay part of it, but the Ron's traffic liaison, Janice, that was Mark Yeager's wife, Michelle Yeager. Why don't you go ahead and explain who she was and what she did?
Basically, any traffic between the different organizations would go through her. And if there was any conflict, it was her job to sort out the conflict so everybody be on the same page.
Okay. Let's see what the next thing here. Okay. This is really a comment, not a question. Richie Pound, I'm so hard pressed to understand how families are so distant and broken, lack of love within the C of S.
Yeah. And you know, there was actually a time, I got to try and remember when it was, but the Commodore did up a whole thing on can we ever be friends? Yeah. Because staff were not writing, or on the ship we were sailing and people didn't write letters. And he was trying to encourage the staff to write letters to their family and stay connected, and people had leave of absence so that there wouldn't be this kind of broken family. But over the years, even the "can we ever be friends" no longer exists or is pushed. But that there, if everyone followed that, you wouldn't have the disconnection from the families, because many of these families aren't even SPs. They just don't hear from people because the schedules are so brutal that no one has time, or they're not allowed to have any time off. And, the whip keeps being cracked on them as if they're a bunch of slaves. But if they were just treated like normal human beings, they wouldn't have half these problems that they have.
This is just my opinion, but my dad left Scientology before I did and was declared a suppressive person, and I disconnected from him for 10 years until I finally got out, right? But he always was following other practices and trying to do other things. But he told me something that I agree with, which is, he said, you know what was missing in Scientology? And I said, what's that? He said, the concept of love. Okay. And anybody who's religious or spiritual, they know what I'm talking about. Love is very important in life. Okay. And I don't know that Hubbard ever wrote a lot of information about the act of love one another, love each other, love yourself. Okay. He talked more about surviving and being a cause over things and that type of thing. And he missed the concept of love, because to me, I don't know about anybody else, but this is my opinion, love is the most important thing in the world. The love of your family, the love of your children, the love of your dog, the love of yourself. To me, that's more important than most any other thing. And that's just my opinion. Okay. Thank you for the question. Here's the next one. Question, Cece, what was Ron Sr.'s legal trouble? He got accused of rape. He got accused of raping a woman, and they got the charges dropped and thrown away. He claims that never happened. There's police reports to the contrary, but anyway, who knows? He never got charged officially, and never, presumed innocent in this country. Thank you for your question, Cece. Next one, super chat, Diane Jean Valacio. Thank you so much for the super chat. I love hearing your stories, not boring at all. You are both awesome. Since Osa is listening, Janice and Mark, will you help them leave? Tell them. Yeah, yes. Come on out, Osa.
Come bang on my door, I'll let you in. I got guest rooms.
Yeah, we've been harassed by you. You've had private investigators just try and destroy our lives, both Janice and mine and other of our friends. But guess what? We will forgive you. Come out wherever you are. Come join the freedom.
Enjoy life.
Yes, enjoy life, because there's much more to it than the hours you're slaving doing what you're doing. All right. Thank you, Diane, for that super chat. Here's the next question here. Panko, another super chat. Thank you so much. Thank you for an interesting channel and perspective. Panko, we really appreciate that. Right, Janice?
Yes, we do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Next question here. James Walsh, please do a deep dive sometime on Church of Scientology labor building up the gold base. I just can't wrap my head around that. I guess you're talking about getting more and more personnel to the gold base and all that. I mean, we can do that. We haven't really even gotten that far into the history of Scientology, because there's a lot of stories that went on at the gold base. Thanks, James. We appreciate your question. Okay, the next question here. GP, hand pink waving. Question, who audits David Miscavige? Okay, GP, we'll answer your question on that. Nobody, as far as I know. When we were in Scientology, when I worked for him, Ray Midoff, who was the senior CS international and then eventually the inspector general for technology, was David's auditor. Okay. But DM went down. We heard stories after the fact, and Ray got in trouble. And it's hard to audit somebody when the guy, your pre-clear or the person you're auditing is attacking you physically. So you've lost all
berating you.
And yes. So I don't know who audits him. I don't think he audits, himself or anything like that. I never really saw him go get sessions after that. So who knows?
Yeah, I was walking by one time when Ray had him in for a session or a sec check, and you could hear Dave just berating Ray the whole time. And it was like, oh, poor Ray. you know, trying to get his questions answered, and it was just poor Ray.
And there's a famous sec check of David Miscavige that was done by Jesse Prince, and he covers it in his book, The Expert Witness. Okay,
That's right.
I'm not going to go into the details, but L. Ron Hubbard wanted Miscavige sec checked, meaning, you know, find out what he's been up to and all that. And Jesse Prince did it. And if you want to find out the details, you can read Jesse's book, The Expert Witness. I'm not going to go into them here.
Yeah.
He was a bad boy. Let's just put it that way. Okay, next question here. James Walsh, please do a deep dive sometime on. Okay, we did that one already. Sorry about that. Okay, and we did that one too. All right, I'm a little behind here. 1 second here. All right, here we go. This is from Shay Anderson. Thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you for contributing the early Church Scientology kind of stuff I looked up on Clambake after I saw some kid handing out tracts on Montgomery Street in San Francisco. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Operation Clambake was a great site. It also helped me, you know, reconnect with people and learn a lot of information. And Andrus, the guy who started that website, unfortunately, is in very poor health right now. And so we all wish him the best. So thank you so much for that super chat, Shay. All right, next question here. Matthew Pritchard, I read a story in Piece of Blue Sky or Barefaced Messiah. It's about LRH returning to the U.S., seeing the alphabet agencies, IRS, FBI, etc., then turn around and sail away. How true is that, Janis? You know that story?
Yeah, that's actually in my second book.
Here's
yeah, we were.
Book. This is a second book right here.
Yeah, the story is in there where we were sailing. We had crossed into U.S. waters from international waters when Jane Kember, the guardian worldwide at St. Hill, called and got through to our radio, and the Commodore was called down to the radio room and was like, why is Jane calling? Anyway, she warned us that there was IRS agents and narcs on the dock in Charleston where we were about to sail into. So we quickly turned around and got back into international waters and sailed down to the Bahamas.
That's right. And you can get Janis's book, both book 1 and book 2, on Amazon.com. We have links on our YouTube page. And they're great books. They're great reads. They have photographs and lots of in-depth stories. All right, so the next question here. Panko, thank you so much again for the super chat. Thanks for an interesting channel and perspective. We appreciate that, Panko. And I did that already. Sorry about that. These things, I'm unchecking them, but they're coming back. We're learning as we go. All right, this is from Tawny Cameron. I think Janis meant a kipper, which is a fish.
Yes, correct. Okay. What did I say? Kipler?
I don't know.
It was
talking about how you had kippers for breakfast.
Yeah.
So people didn't know what there was. They're fish.
Yeah, it's a fish.
Okay. Tom Miller, thank you so much for the super sticker. We really appreciate it. And the next one. Ronnie Rose, have you guys read the report Leah produced from the Jane Doe's mom? I wonder why it never got into the trial. Yeah, I saw Aaron Smith-Levin's video on that, and Janis, I had her watch it today as well. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, I am not surprised at all about that report. This thing was written in 2004. If anybody hasn't seen it, you should watch Aaron's channel. He goes over the 4-page letter that the mother wrote to David Miscavige. Scientology knew exactly what was going on. I mean, I knew this. I talked to John Poe at Poe on the Go about this last week, that anybody who's a Scientologist, and these Jane Does and Danny Masterson were Scientologists, if you get put on the e-meter and they ask you questions in ethics, okay, they're going to get the answers and they're going to get the truth. Okay, because they're not going to let you out until you've got a floating needle and you've come clean. And sure enough, reading that letter from the mother, she got copies of the knowledge reports from the sec check sessions. He came clean. This guy was responsible for what happened, and why it wasn't allowed into the court case. From what I understand, is the mother's not cooperating, so she can't validate it or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, I've always believed that Scientology knew exactly what they were doing, and they've obstructed justice by not reporting it. Janice, do you have any thoughts on it?
No, you've covered what I would say.
Yeah, and this would come up. I mean, when something bad happened, Scientology, they get the answers, okay? And guess what? They keep files on everything, you know? And it even came out in the trial that after what was it? Somebody was raped or whatever. They changed it so that they can no longer say rape. They use code words and code letters in dispatches so that they couldn't, you know, it wouldn't come back on them later legally. So they know what's going on. Anyway, thank you so much, Ronnie Ross. Sorry, Ronnie Rose. Sorry. All right, next question here. Richie Pound, question. I'm always fascinated by the crazed characters in Scientology. What about Angie Blankenship? She was after my time. I never met Angie. Did you?
After my time.
Yeah, she, from what I understand, became one of Miscavige's, you know, henchwomen, and you know, I never met her. You know, I never would have lasted on that. By the way, if he wanted me to, you know, be an enforcer for him, that would have never happened. As a matter of fact, I was the good cop. He would go nuts on people, and I was the one who would go in there and basically calmly figure out with the person how we could get the thing done. I was always the good cop. I was never the bad cop, and I would have never put up with that crap. Thank you, Richie. Next one here. One Love 51000. Question: have either of you been bothered by CFS since you started the channel? I also like hearing about the old timers. They deserve to be talked about. We've got no flashback. You know, we've had, that's my dog. We've had nothing, right?
Yeah, nothing yet. It's been peaceful.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
I'm in a gated community, so.
And I'm not actually worried. I mean, listen,
Yeah.
They've done a lot of things, which we'll cover in future shows, a lot of things to us, okay? But I'm at the point in my life where I could care less. They could do whatever they want to. I'm retired. What are they going to do? Hurt my business? I don't have any business anymore. You know, go after my family. My mother's 93 years old, you know. There's nothing they can do to me, you know, so I'm not worried. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead, Janice. I'm sorry.
I just forgot.
That's all right. Next one, Barbara Bell. Thank you so much for the super chat. Was there ever a time you were afraid working for LRH, Janice?
You know, as a kid working for him, nearly every day before I would go and watch, I would tell myself I could do it, and I would get through my watch without having him be mad at me. And I would kind of set my mind at that and go in with that thought. And the idea is just to pull off my watch and get through it without being yelled at. That answers your question.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much for that question. I never worked directly for L. Ron Hubbard. You never wanted, I mean, even from a distance, you didn't want to make him angry or upset, you know, because he would write dispatches and orders and all that. But, you know, I was never afraid or anything like that. Hey, listen, we've got 354 people in here. We're going to cut off the questions here shortly. So if you have any last questions, go ahead and put them in there and we'll answer them. But we're not going to check any more questions after like the next, you know, 5 minutes or so. Otherwise, we'll be here all day and all night. Okay. But anyway, we appreciate all that you guys are asking us. And let me go on to the next one here. Did I do that one already? Yep. Sorry. I'm scanning down here. Oh, I'm in the wrong one. That's why. Sorry about that. Okay, next question is right here. Lena 1, thank you so much for the super chat. Is it true James Carville and Mary Matlin are Scientologists? I've never heard that.
I don't know.
I've never heard. You know, Janice, do you even know who they are?
No.
I do. James Carville and Mary Matlin are both political operatives. James Carville worked for Bill Clinton, and he's still around. And then Mary Matlin was a Republican who worked for George Bush, and then they got married and all that. But no, I've never heard that.
Oh, okay.
Greta Van Susteren is a Scientologist. Her and her husband, they're Scientologists. But she's under the radar, basically. She doesn't really ever speak out or anything like that. And her husband's an attorney. Okay, next question here. Oh, sorry about that. I'm getting behind here. Okay, this is from Pam Abernathy. Janice, I think you and your our family member might have been at St. Hill at the same time. She left at age 21. I think she is around 69 years old now. Pan Abernathy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll be there at the same time.
You don't know who she is? I mean, we don't have a name, Pam. If you want
No.
to, yeah, maybe we could check. Okay. Well, thank you, Pam. All right. And then next we have Jennifer Crane. Thank you for the super sticker. We really appreciate it. It's helped support the channel. Oh my gosh. Look at who's in the chat room with us. Amy
Yes,
Scobie.
I know.
Hi, Amy. I hope you're still here. Sorry we're so slow with getting to your question. Amy,
Amy, I'm still worker oriented. You never handled me properly.
Amy has a wonderful channel. Love Mark and Janis. We go back a long ways. So happy they now have their own channel and sharing their amazing history. XOXOXO. Yeah, I met Amy when she first joined the Sea Organization in Clearwater. She had to be like 16 years old. And she was working with Susie LaPlane as the flag personnel procurement officer, meaning she was out recruiting people into the Sea Organization. And I know she's told stories about, being sent to Denmark at that age to get people there. And that's when I first met Amy. And then she got married to her first husband, who also was somebody that I knew named David Paul. And then we've grown up together. Amy, then eventually ended up at the Gold Base. And we did a lot of work with her up there. And at that time, then she was married to Jim Mortland, who's also a good friend of ours. And, Amy is just wonderful. And then, afterwards, after we left, she was the one I remember telling us, Janis, you guys, so good that you left when you did, because it got so much worse after you left. You remember that? Because then she told us the whole musical chair story, about Miscavige, playing musical chairs with the, and my jaw was on the floor. I could not believe it. Anyway, go ahead, Janis.
Well, she showed me her whole knowledge report, which then turned into her book.
Yeah.
And I was like just floored of what was going on.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, Mark Headley's book, Amy's book, they tell about all these abuses that were really sadistic. I just re-listened to Mark Headley's Blown for Good book, by the way. Everybody should read it, and everybody should read Amy's Abuse at the Top. It's a great book as well. And we were floored. We had no idea what was going on there. So Amy, thank you so much. And we're going to do a group video or group chat at some point here in the future, and we'll catch up on a lot of stories, and you guys can all sit in and watch. So that would be nice. Thanks, Amy. Okay, Cal, did Ron play this hardcore game, beating up and the whole too? No.
No, I mean, there's times where there were group conditions, and he did do chain locker assignments and overboarding and docking of pay, and we have bonuses being taken away. Yeah, there's things he did, but from the stories I hear with Miscavige, it's not they're horrible, but not as horrid as what DM's been doing.
Not even close, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, there's degrees to everything, and Miscavige is taking everything to the nth degree. All you have to do is read those stories, read the books, like I mentioned, read that knowledge report from Jane Doe's mother, okay, and hear what happened, what Danny Masterson and this other guy did, okay, and you'll understand that he's a nutcase, Miscavige. Thank you so much for your question on that, Cal. All right, hold on a sec here. I think I went down too far. Yes, I did. Okay, next one. Super chat from Carol Jukosayan, just a saying. Carol, just a saying, I think that's what you're saying. Thank you so much. Were there any signs, especially at the end, that LRH knew it didn't work, but desperately wanted it and had to work hard to believe?
Well, I wasn't near him at the end.
No, neither was I, but I think he was a true believer. I mean, he believed in what he was doing, Janis, from the time you worked together with him, right?
Yes, yeah. And, and I do hear, and I heard that story from Saj where, yeah, he was still believing in BTs and trying to get rid of them. And with the copper rods and that type of thing.
Yeah, and Sarge said he told him that he was a failure. But listen, Hubbard was not well at the end. He had had several strokes, and obviously he went through mood depressions and all that. I mean, he was an old man who had bad health, and I don't know, because we weren't there. That's the stories that we've heard. But all I can tell you is that when I was in there, I mean, we were focused on expanding Scientology across the planet and getting as many people in as we could and helping people. Okay. Thank you so much, Carol. Next question. Bach Buddy question. Was anyone in the bubble aware of the fact that the original Apollo was sunk by a train while at the dock? Seems like an omen for CFS. Was LRH aware? Yeah, we told that story earlier.
Yeah, but after it happened, word did get back, and different people who had been on the ship did know that it happened. LRH, I do not believe he knew that that's what happened to her.
Okay, thank you so much for your question. Next question here. I can't even begin to read your name. I'm so sorry. This is really interesting. Thanks. What's the deal with DM's wife? Is she still being secluded away somewhere, or do we know what her status is? Janice?
No, we don't know where she is. We have suspicions just like everybody else.
Right.
My own thoughts, since I've been told that he got her a house, and she has staff who are assigned to her, who probably are now her best friends, or she thinks they are, and they're in this small little group together. And maybe my hope is that she's happily living out her life in this house, doing what she wants to do, and not having to have the whip cracked on her and have a job or anything like that, but could be retired and not have to see Dave because he's busy attacking other people and leaving her alone.
And when she says that she has her own house, if she's at the Lake Arrowhead property up in the mountains, there's cabins. There's big cabins, several of them there that have been built, and she probably lives in one of those by herself or with whoever her friends are. Okay, thank you so much for that question. Next question, Joel McCoyne. Question, is there anything you can do in the Church of Scientology that does not get you into trouble? Doing your job?
Yeah.
in the mind of the people who's in charge,
Right. Yeah, you got to make things go right.
Yes, make it go right. Thanks for your question, Joel. Amy Scobie again. I was one of the 110 people you visited, and I was your favorite, right, Janice?
Yes, Amy, you were my favorite.
We love Annie.
There were a few other people close behind you, but as I said when we had lunch, you're always my favorite.
There you go. Thank you, Amy. We look forward to talking to you soon. Next question. Amy in Boston. Question for people self-admitted, uneducated. You all seem successful. Did you find jobs based on the jobs you had in the Sea Org when you left? No, not. I didn't even know what a mortgage was. How about you, Janice?
I didn't know what a mortgage was.
It's really sad too, because I'll be honest with you. I built a music studio when I worked in C organization. I oversaw that. I oversaw audio lines. I knew everything about, setting up a studio and their equipment and cinema equipment and all that stuff, right? And I literally had experience as a manager in Scientology. But when we got out, I had no resume, nothing that was sellable to a regular company, because I was 32 years old, a high school graduate with no college education, and any experience I had, if I wrote it down, if they went to go verify it with Scientology, they would have denied I'd ever was there.
Yeah. Well, I had a 6th grade education. And so when I left, I didn't know what a mortgage was. I was a drill sergeant babysitting. I didn't know how the world operated properly because, I went in the Sea Org at 11 years old. So I really didn't know how things worked. I had parents who were wonderful parents. Well, the way they raised me peacefully. But we just had to we were lucky when we moved to Vegas. with a Scientologist who had been in the mortgage business. He said, come to Vegas and I'll teach it to you. We were lucky that the people who were backing him, we told them our story and they were very supportive of us. And then when the Scientologists that helped us move to California and the mortgage company was going to be shut down, these other people, Dennis and Ron, Paul and I went to them and talked to them, and they said, well, we'll leave it open for you. And we promised to buy it from them so they could eventually get out, which we did do. And but if it wasn't for Dennis and Ron, I don't know what we would have done, but just being truthful with them really helped a lot to get their support and believe in us.
Okay, great. Thank you, Amy in Boston. Janice, go through and check any last questions, okay? We still have some to answer here, and we're going to answer them all.
Okay.
But I want to cut them off, or we'll be here all night with you guys.
Yeah.
Although we're having a good time. There's 343 people still here, and we really appreciate all that you do, okay? So here comes the next question. It's for you, Janice, but if you can go ahead and do it, check it, that'd be great. Janice, did you have to explain your escape at that point?
Well, that was part of the escape.
Thank you, Shay. Next question. Douglas, did you read any LRH fiction when still in? I'll answer that, Janice. We'll look and see if there's any more questions to check.
Okay.
And then we'll stop checking them. Okay. I read LRH fiction. I read Battlefield Earth, of course, when it came out. We got advanced copies of Mission Earth, which was his 10-volume science fiction epic. And I know Janice wants to comment on that. But we got galley copies to read before they went out. The funny thing about Mission Earth was it got cut up into 10 volumes, which was the first ever decology or whatever it was, Mission Earth or science fiction novel, right? L. Ron Hubbard wrote that as one novel, okay? It was so big and so voluminous that they had to have Vaughn Young, who worked at Author Services, edit the book and figure out where to break it down into 10 volumes because he just did it. He just was rolling off the pages, you know? So yeah, I read both of those while I was in. I didn't really read any of his other science fiction. Janice, you wanted to comment, right, on that comment we got last time?
Yeah, somebody had asked if kids had to read the Battlefield Earth or the Mission Earth stuff because of the sex that is in it. And I don't know of any kids that had to read it. I know when I read it, I was shocked and actually disgusted. And though I'd been with Hubbard all those years, it really shocked me to see that he, as a leader of a religion, would write such trash. And, you know, I mentioned to my sister later and she found out she had the same thoughts I did.
Yeah,
we were just shocked because that whole time we were with him all those years, he never brought up, you know, sex stuff and, you know, that type of thing. But there it was. And I was like, oh my God, this is disgusting.
Okay, great. Thank you, Douglas. Next question. Okay. I know Mark got beat down literally, but what was the tipping point for you, Janice?
The tipping point for me was I had been at the Free Winds covering as the commanding officer of the ship when my husband was in Clearwater on mission, and my husband was getting recalled because two things. Someone reminded me the other day of the second thing, but one, he said that David Miscavige was the reason that the Flag Service Org was having problems because he had cut across their purpose. And the other was he had a problem with all the IAS donations that were going on and the fundraising that was going on. Rather than regging people for services, they were just trying to get free money. And my husband had spoken up about that and gotten recalled and was in trouble. And that's where he called me at the ship and said, don't believe anything they tell you. And then the next thing you know, I'm being pulled back from the ship under God, though I was just covering while Milt Wolf was being handled for gambling and drinking.
Who's Milt Wolf?
So Milt Wolf had been the commanding officer of the ship, which is the position over the captain and over the person running the service org. So when they sent me escorted back, that was where I was like, I'm done. You know, they don't trust me, that they have to have an escort with me. And that's when my mind just started, you know, clicking on it. And also seeing while I was on the ship that how Miscavige and the other executives were all hanging out with the public and living it up with them and treating the staff like they were nothing. No respect to the staff who were there volunteering their whole lives. And that got me as well.
Did you mention you were pregnant too at the time with your son, John?
Oh, yeah, I was pregnant, and there was no way I was going to make that announcement and get pulled into ethics and dragged over the coals until I agreed to have an abortion.
Yeah, because Miscavige had already outlawed kids.
Yeah, so I kept that quiet, and yeah, I suspected I was pregnant. I didn't have any confirmation. I just knew it.
Yeah.
And that was the final stepping point. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. Hold on a second. Next question is from Love Sherlock. Did you both get an official SP declare? Yes, I did. About a few months after, wasn't even actually that long. And we're going to do a video on it. I'm actually going to show my SP declare. It's the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen. But anyway, yeah, I'm guilty of many high crimes, including not handling my in basket of my traffic.
And not keeping Scientology working.
Yeah. Okay, Janice, I gotta let my dog out real quick here. Answer this question here. Would you consider Scientologists to be conservative or liberal in political views?
You know, I found them to be both. I think it depends on each person. I found them on both sides.
I have too. Really, I have, but I would consider Hubbard would be more conservative only because Scientology preached personal responsibility, that you are responsible for your own condition. We are not to rely on welfare or government assistance or anything like that. He thought the individual was responsible for their own condition. And that's very much a conservative viewpoint. Okay. He also had been in the military and in the Navy, so he was very law and order, but he didn't trust the government at all. He thought the government was out to get him. They were the boogeyman behind the bushes. So like Janis said, people have different viewpoints and that type of thing, but the personal responsibility thing, that was the biggest thing that I think led him to, it was more of a conservative, I would say, viewpoint.
But you were living in a communistic environment.
Yeah. Yeah. Where everything was paid for us, our food, our birthing and all that. So it's all a contradiction. All right. Thank you so much for that question. Sorry, here we go. And we got another super chat. Thank you. My cat loves your channel, Couch. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. My dog loves the channel. I just had to let her out because she's going like, hey, it's time for me to go outside. We still have 338 people in here. All right, next question. We're going to round through these last ones here. Goldie, are you familiar with Taj Ferrante? I've never heard of that.
No.
No, sorry about that, Goldie. Next question is from Colonel Brock. Janis, do you have any pictures of Sven Peterson?
You know, I think there's one or possibly two, but also I know you were looking for Sven. I don't know if you saw someone answered that he passed away in May last year.
Yeah. Thanks, Colonel Brock. Next question here. Victoria Morris, Janis, it was a rough upbringing, but you have seen a lot of the world.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Correct.
I've definitely seen a lot of the world.
Thank you, Victoria, for the comment. Okay, Amy's back. Amy Scobie. The first person I saw Miscavige hit was Ray Midoff. There you go. That was his auditor, his processor. Miscavige hit him, and Amy was the one who witnessed it. So thanks, Amy. Okay, next question here. Cece, thank you, Mark, for answering my free question. I wonder if Ron Sr.'s case was actually settled. Loretta would know. Is she around to question? No, she passed away many years ago, actually.
Many years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. You can read about it in Marty Rathman's book, Confessions of a Scientology Warrior or whatever, or Memoirs of a Scientology Warrior. He covers that in there, but I can't recall what happened from on that. Thanks, Cece. Okay, Irma Webb question: Did Jane Kember ever work at Citizens Commissions on Human Rights? Was she Mary Sue's communicator? Janice?
No, Jane Kember was the Guardian. She was over the Guardian's office internationally, which is now replaced by OSA, the Office of Special Affairs. But Jane Kember was South African. She actually twinned with my mother on the briefing course back in 1962 at St. Hill. But she worked directly under Mary Sue as the Guardian. Mary Sue was the controller, and Jane was the Guardian, and they were the ones who were running the Snow White program.
Yep, they were both convicted, and
Yes.
both went to jail.
Yes.
Thank you, Irma. Okay, next is Cal again. Are you still using the e-meter and check yourselves with it? No, I don't have it.
No.
Next question. Are you still friends with any Church of Scientology members, like active members? No, I don't think so, unless they're independent Scientologists, you know.
I am.
Okay, well, there you go, Janis. Thanks for your question. Okay, next question here. Observation: for all the non-educated, how does such amazing buildings, tricked out motorcycle studios, etc., come out if the line of "you are idiots" were true? DM control
Exactly.
That's exactly right. Oh, I have to do it all. I do it all. You know, you guys don't do anything, and yet everything gets done. That's a good point. Thank you so much, Stacy Y. All right, and then next question is, this is from Karen Garrison. Question: did you two find it necessary to stop using Scientology terms once you left, or do you still find them sometimes useful today? Thank you both for the time and effort. I'll answer that quickly. Amongst ourselves, sometimes we use them, but you know, I just read Jane Doe's letter to David Miscavige, and it's so full of Scientology terms that I went to Janis. I said, that woman is definitely a Scientologist because she's using terms that I haven't used in years.
Yeah.
How about you, Janis?
We do among ourselves use the terms, or sometimes I have to stop and kind of translate into my head as to what's the proper English term, you know, because I grew up with it as my first language. And I brought up a great example of the word DevT, developed traffic.
Yeah.
Where there isn't any word in the English dictionary that I know of that fits that definition.
Thanks. We're up to 360 people. Thank you so much, Karen, for that question. Yeah. Next question, Cal. Did you speak about former lives on the ship back then openly, or was that from begin to keep secret from others, OTs too, or after every fifth was Napoleon and Cleopatra? In other words, were you talking about past lives on the ship? I never talked about past lives ever in Scientology with anybody.
No, some people might bring it up, but it just wasn't something that was in conversations. But I do remember at St. Hill when I was a kid, Pam Piercy, she used to wear these purple stockings and mini skirts because it was the 60s. And she used to talk about going and visit spaceships at nighttime and, you know, leaving the body and going on the spaceship and going around and checking things out. And so there was a lot of more outer space talk than past lifetime talk.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good question. Thank you, Cal, for that question. And then this is the last question here, I think. This is from Karen Garrison.
There's some new ones that I haven't brought up because we're trying to close down.
Yeah, okay. Karen Garrison, if Scientology is tax-free religion organization, why are Sea Org members taxed when Scientology actually decides to pay them? Thank you both. I never got taxed when I was in the Sea organization. We got paid $17.20 and then $30. I think I did get taxed on my bonuses that I got paid, but for some reason we didn't have to pay Social Security taxes. But I had to file a tax return. You know, when I started getting bonuses, we had to file tax returns. So that was my question.
We on our tax statement over the years, it shows zeros during the whole period we were in the church.
Okay. So is that the last one then, Janice? Do we have any other stragglers that you want to answer?
No, I don't think there are any more right now. But after this, we'll go back through and look for any, and then we'll bring those up to start off our next Q&A next week.
Exactly. Anyway, we want to thank everybody. Please subscribe to our channel. We have quite a few people that are already subscribed, but if you haven't, just click that subscription button, because what will happen is you'll get notified, or because we're putting out a video a week, and then we try and do a live chat once a week. So please subscribe. It helps get the word out to other people. And also click that like button. I know it sounds really, juvenile and very simple, but it actually helps. It helps, get the word out to more people. And then also, if you have any questions that we missed, ask in the comment section of the video after we end here on the live stream. And we always check the comments, and we'll get back to you on it. And then finally, I wanted to mention Janice has 2 books. Okay, this one here is her first book, Commoner's Messenger, book 1, and that's Janis with L. Ron Hubbard. And then this is book 2, and again, that's another real photograph of Janis with L. Ron Hubbard. And you can order those on Amazon.com. Okay. And also she has an audio version of book 1, and she's eventually going to do book 2. Is that right, Janice?
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
That's correct. Hey, and I do want to bring up, on one of our Q&As a week or 2 ago, there was a lady who lives in Porto, Portugal, who wanted me to bring books to her because I'm going to Lisbon in October. Yeah. But I actually have a friend who is going to Porto in October. And if she can contact me at janisgilhamgrady@gmail.com, I can get that all coordinated and arranged to get her books.
Fabulous. And then Janice, you're going to be interviewed tomorrow on Poe on the Go. John Poe has a channel. He's part of the SPTV network. He's a great guy. I got interviewed last Sunday night. He's a former police chief in a town in Michigan. And he's got a great channel, Poe on the Go. And Janice is going to be interviewed tomorrow night, I think, 4 o'clock?
Yeah, 5 o'clock Pacific time.
8 o'clock Eastern. So go to Poe on the Go if you want to see Janice get interviewed some more. And John's a really great guy, so you should check out his channel. Anything else, Janice, before we end?
No, I really appreciate the questions and the working my memory, keeping it in shape. I do enjoy that. So keep it up. Thank you.
Peace out, everybody. Thanks very much, and have a great evening.
Bye.